In a small and seemingly quiet town, an emergency call at 11 a.m. would forever change the life of an entire community. A desperate mother collapsed in her neighbor's yard, screaming that her children were dying. What could have been just another domestic tragedy quickly revealed itself as a chilling episode marked by mystery, delusions, and violence within the walls of her own home. But how far can a disturbed mind go before it becomes a mortal threat? And when a mother crosses the line from instinctive protection into the path of destruction, are we facing illness, manipulation, or pure evil? The answers not only shocked investigators, but shattered any image of normalcy people once had of the woman at the center of this case. That was the scene police in Shepherdsville encountered in November 2024. 2 children gravely wounded, a mother in collapse, and no sign of forced entry. What initially looked like an external crime, a planned attack by strangers, quickly shifted into a far darker possibility. Between neighbors' accounts of bizarre behavior the night before and the incoherent statements of 32-year-old Tiffany Lucas, investigators began to uncover the portrait of a mind consumed by paranoia and confusion. On that Wednesday morning, Shepherdsville's 911 dispatch received a disturbing call. On the line was a panicked neighbor reporting that a woman had collapsed at her doorstep, screaming that her children were dying. Her desperation was so intense, she briefly lost consciousness, forcing the witness to demand immediate help. Meanwhile, the caller's husband rushed next door to see what was happening. What he found was unimaginable. 2 boys, Maurice, only 6, and Jaden, 9, lay sprawled across a bed, covered in blood, still breathing but critically injured. The room was in chaos, with clothes scattered across the floor, furniture overturned, and sheets soaked in red. Spent shell casings littered the mattress, evidence that shots had been fired just feet from where the children slept. When first responders arrived, they confirmed the severity of the situation. Despite the boys' struggle to cling to life, it was clear their chances of recovery were slim. A firearm was later discovered hidden beneath the pillows, suggesting a hurried attempt to conceal it. The most troubling detail: there were no signs of forced entry. Doors and windows were intact, showing no marks of break-in. The home invasion theory began to collapse. From that point on, investigators turned their focus inside the house, to the one person at the center of the chaos, the children's mother. With the invasion theory ruled out, all eyes were on 32-year-old Tiffany Lucas. She was found outside the residence in a state of complete emotional breakdown, muttering incoherent phrases and behaving in a way that clashed with the image of a mother who had just seen her children fatally wounded. Her physical collapse in the neighbor's yard, paired with her unstable demeanor, quickly placed her at the heart of the investigation. Detained at the scene, Tiffany showed clear signs of being altered. Her gestures were erratic, her words disjointed, and her behavior swung between despair and eerie detachment. Nothing in her expression reflected the genuine shock of a mother confronted with such horror. For investigators, the puzzle shifted from who had attacked the children to why. As word spread, neighbors began recounting strange behavior from the night before. One recalled Tiffany borrowing phones without reason, making calls to numbers no one recognized. Another said he had seen her standing at the end of the street, staring at the sky for long minutes, as if under some strange influence. These testimonies strengthened the theory that she wasn't just involved, but possibly trapped in a deep state of delirium. What at first looked like a crime of opportunity was now unfolding into something far more complex, a mental breakdown fueled by spiraling paranoia. As soon as she was taken to the police station, Tiffany Lucas continued displaying the same unstable behavior. At one point, she claimed she had shot herself in the ear, a statement quickly disproven since there was no injury to her head. This contradiction deepened investigators' suspicions, leading them to interpret every word she spoke as part of a severely compromised mental state. During the first hours of questioning, Tiffany's delusions grew increasingly elaborate. She insisted that video games and online videos were controlling her children, corrupting entire families. She also declared that someone had placed something inside her house to manipulate her mind, reinforcing her narrative of invisible persecution. Amid her fragmented speech, the name Parker Borders surfaced. Tiffany accused this man of stalking her for 3 years, using Wi-Fi signals and even cell phone calls to manipulate her thoughts. According to her, Parker was the one who had provided the weapon used in the crime. However, when investigators followed up on her claims, they found nothing. No evidence of this individual's existence, nor any records of the supposed friend Tiffany mentioned, who she claimed had died in an accident. With each failed verification, it became more evident that her statements were hallucinations. The investigation solidified. The tragedy was not the work of outsiders, but the result of a collapsing mind. Amid contradictions, Tiffany initially denied responsibility for the shootings. But as the interrogation progressed, she vaguely admitted that the shots against her children had been an accident. She refused, however, to give details that could clarify what truly happened that morning. Her demeanor swung between incoherent justifications and long silences, reinforcing the difficulty of establishing a concrete version of events. For investigators, this partial admission was enough to strengthen the main line of accusation. Still, the case required material evidence to erase any remaining doubts about who had fired the weapon. Forensics soon delivered definitive answers. On the handgun, only Tiffany's fingerprints were found, ruling out the presence of anyone else at the crime scene. The crime scene analysis confirmed no signs of intruders. Everything pointed to an isolated act. The technical report was the final piece investigators needed. Based on it, it was proven Tiffany was solely responsible for the shots that fatally wounded her 2 sons. From that point forward, there was no doubt. The crime was not the product of some external conspiracy, but the decision of a mother in a fragile and disturbed mental state. The investigation revealed a dark history in Tiffany's life. For nearly a decade, she had battled opioid addiction. The dependency began after using prescribed painkillers during what should have been a routine dental treatment. What was supposed to be a temporary solution turned into chronic addiction, worsening when she began consuming fentanyl, a substance infamous for its devastating power. This prolonged use not only harmed her physical health, but also destabilized her emotionally. Accounts from those close to her describe drastic mood swings, episodes of paranoia, and a constant state of anxiety. The drug seemed to have become the center of her existence, dictating decisions and fueling delusions. In the days leading up to the crime, Tiffany had abruptly stopped using the drug. This sudden withdrawal, coupled with her long history of abuse, may have intensified her hallucinations and mental collapse. During this time, she convinced herself that her children were in danger, supposedly targets of a human trafficking network. Convinced she had to save them, Tiffany made one of the most cruel and irreversible decisions of her life. She fired at the children while they slept, believing she was protecting them. This warped perception of reality became the key to understanding the motive behind the act that shocked the community of Shepherdsville. After shooting her children, Tiffany told police she had fired at her own head. Yet, she bore no injury to support her claim. What seemed like another contradiction made sense when forensic experts concluded the gun had actually malfunctioned after the shots at the children. The supposed suicide attempt never happened because the pistol jammed when she aimed it at herself. This technical failure explained her bizarre statement that she had been shot, when in reality the weapon never discharged. The confusion in her words only reinforced the state of delirium and mental instability that consumed her at the time of the tragedy. While Tiffany was taken into custody, paramedics fought desperately to save Maurice, 6, and Jaden, 9. Both were rushed to the local hospital in critical condition. Doctors worked tirelessly, but the wounds were extensive and irreversible. Despite their efforts, neither boy survived. The confirmation of the boys' deaths cast an unbearable weight over the community. News spread quickly throughout the town, leaving neighbors, relatives, and even strangers in shock. The general sentiment was one of disbelief. How could a mother be responsible for such a brutal act against her own children? As the details of the crime stunned the public, another dark episode resurfaced for investigators: the murder of Tiffany's husband in 2019. The case remained unsolved, and although she was never formally linked to his death, her grim history reinforced the image of a life marked by tragedies and unexplained secrets. Authorities recalled that, at the time, there had been no concrete evidence implicating Tiffany. However, the brutality against her sons once again raised questions about whether her past might conceal involvement in other violent episodes. The uncertainty lingered. Was it mere coincidence, or was there a pattern in her trajectory? With the investigation into the children's deaths concluded, no room for doubt remained. On November 22, 2024, Tiffany Lucas pled guilty to the murders of Maurice and Jaden. The sentence was severe, 2 consecutive life terms, with no possibility of parole until 2043. The trial brought some relief to the community, but did nothing to erase the pain. 2 innocent lives have been lost, and the image of a protective mother was forever replaced by that of an assassin consumed by addiction, delusion, and irreversible choices. Shepherdsville, once accustomed to a peaceful routine, was shaken beyond repair. Quiet streets gave way to discussions on safety, mental health, and drug dependency. The crime had not only destroyed one family, but also left a collective scar on a community that never imagined facing such brutality within its borders. Neighbors expressed feelings of guilt for not recognizing Tiffany's instability more seriously. Some claimed her paranoid behavior the night before could have been a disguised cry for help. Others, however, believed nothing could have stopped the tragedy, as her mental state seemed far beyond control. The case also sparked debates across the state of Kentucky. Mental health experts highlighted the severity of opioid dependence and the devastating effects of withdrawal, which often lead to psychotic breaks and self-destructive behavior. Tiffany's tragedy began to be cited as an example in lectures and public discussions about the dangers of the drug crisis sweeping the United States. A story marked by pain and disbelief transformed into a grim warning. Ignoring the signs of addiction and instability can result in irreversible consequences, not only for the person suffering, but for everyone around them. Tiffany's case once again exposed the severity of the opioid crisis in the United States. It is estimated that thousands of families are impacted every year by tragedies linked to addiction to powerful painkillers like fentanyl. What often begins with a legitimate medical prescription quickly transforms into a dependency that consumes not only the individual, but everyone around them. Experts noted that Tiffany followed this exact path. A toothache treated with controlled medication triggered a spiral of abuse, relapses, and worsening psychological symptoms. When she abruptly stopped using, her already fragile mind collapsed. The result was an extreme, cruel, and irreversible act. The court's decision to sentence Tiffany to 2 consecutive life terms brought a sense of justice, but did not erase the lingering questions. For many, the punishment was necessary to ensure she would never again pose a threat. For others, it simply revealed the inevitable outcome of a collective failure to deal with the devastating effects of chemical dependency. At the center of the discussion was the memory of two children who never had the chance to choose their fate. Maurice and Jaden became innocent symbols of a tragedy that could have been prevented, but instead became one of the darkest chapters in the city's history. Police bodycam recordings of the incident revealed a disturbing scene. Tiffany, handcuffed, shouted incoherent phrases, alternating between claims she had been shot and accusations of invisible persecution. The footage circulated among investigators and became key evidence of her altered state. For many, the video symbolized the definitive transformation of a mother figure into a portrait of madness and violence. The footage sparked intense debate across social media and local news. Some saw her as a cruel monster, devoid of any humanity. Others highlighted her condition as an addict in withdrawal, seeing her as a victim of a failed healthcare system that provided no adequate support. Meanwhile, close relatives arranged the funerals for Maurice and Jaden. The atmosphere was one of total devastation. Photographs of the boys smiling in ordinary moments of life. Birthdays, backyard games, school trips contrasted brutally with the memory of the crime. The pain of the family was made even heavier by the realization that the person responsible for the tragedy was the one who should have protected them at all costs. The farewell united the entire town, with crowds gathering to show solidarity. Yet the emptiness left by the two boys would echo far beyond that day, turning the memory of the Lucas family into a painful example of how the combination of addiction and despair can destroy everything. The Tiffany Lucas case became one of the most talked about in Kentucky in recent years, not only because of its brutality, but also due to the layers of mystery, delusion, and addiction surrounding it. For the community, there remained the bitter memory of two children taken by the very person meant to be their safe harbor. For authorities, it stood as a warning that the opioid crisis is capable of turning entire homes into scenes of horror. Experts began using the episode as a reference point in debates on mental health and drugs. Universities, forums, and even churches raised the discussion of where individual responsibility ends and where the system's failure to provide prevention, treatment, and support begins. Tiffany's name, once just another in the town, now carried the weight of a story no one wanted to relive, but one that could not be forgotten. On November 22nd, 2024, with her sentence finalized to 2 consecutive life terms, Tiffany sealed her fate. Her future is now confined to prison walls, where she will have plenty of time to live with the weight of her choices and delusions. Maurice and Jaden, on the other hand, became an eternal reminder of lost innocence. The candles lit in their memory, spread across the community by neighbors and relatives, symbolized not only the pain of loss, but also the silent cry of a town demanding answers and change. Thus, the horrifying body cam of a murderous mother is not just a record of crime, but a cruel reflection of how far human fragility can descend when fueled by addiction and invisible fears. Enjoyed this case? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more true crime stories like this. Drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories travel. Hit the like button to support our work and share this video with fellow true crime fans.